Hello and welcome to my first fly tying demonstration video. Today we're going to be tying the Brassie. When I to teach someone to tie flies, I always start with the Brassie. I think it's just a great first fly to start with. There's foundational techniques in this fly that you'll be using on all sorts of flies from here on out. So it's a great starting point. A great reason is that it's the epitome of simplicity. This fly only has two materials in it. It has a thorax made of a Peacock Herl, and it has a body or abdomen made of wire. This wire body makes this fly very durable. It gives it a very narrow profile, makes it sink easy, and it's also naturally heavy because of the wire. So there's a multitude of reasons why this is a great fly to have around. Another great reason, and probably my primary reason that I teach this fly first, is because it's so versatile. It sparks someone's creativity right away, and just by changing out materials, hook styles, adding beads, different kinds of thoraxes, you can change this fly around and have all sorts of different caddis larvae or pupa and midges as well, chironomids. All sorts of things and all sorts of fishing situations. This one's tied on a curved hook shank, and it also has a tungsten bead head for additional weight. With some new wires that we're able to get nowadays, you can change out the color of these flies as well. Here is one that's tied with an olive green wire. This one has a bead head, but it also, instead of having a peacock thorax, this one has a dubbed thorax, which is what we're going to do today. So I'm going to take this fly out. Actually, I wanted to show you that traditionally it was tied on this straight hook. I typically like to tie my midges and a lot of my nymphs on these curved hooks. So I'm going to put my curved hook in. This hook is a TMC 2487. Laid down a bed of thread. I'm using uni thread 8/0 at this point. I'm going to make these thread wraps nice and neat all the way back. One of the things you want to take care in creating is a nice foundation, a nice thread bed for that wire to lay on. Any discrepancy underneath that wire will show up as you wrap that wire forward. This becomes increasingly important when you're tying more materials in, such as if you're creating a copper john or something of that nature, which essentially is a fancy Brassie. Okay, I'm going to tie my wire in right up here at about the 75% mark on this hook shank. For this fly I'm using the brass or the gold color Brassie size. As I said before, you can get all different sorts of varieties. This UTC Ultra Wire comes in all sorts of colors to play with. This one is a brown copper in the Brassie size. That's what the BR stands for. You can also get small, extra small, small, medium, and large as well. So I'm going to come in at an angle to tie my wire in, and tie that wire right along the side of the hook shank. Keeping that wire nice and tight against the hook shank, I'm going to wrap that, tie that in all the way up, or all the way back rather, to the bend in the hook. Keeping that wire straight so that it doesn't twist around that hook shank is important, because like I said, any discrepancy in your bed is going to show up in your wire wraps later. I bring this thread back to the front about the 75% mark, and then I'm going to take this wire now and wrap it forward. I'm going to wrap it away from me over the hook shank. Most materials you want to wrap away from you. It's a good habit to get in that now. I'm going to make each one of these consecutive wraps as close and as tight up against the previous wrap as I can. I'm just going to wrap this forward. Now, one way you can accomplish this is as you come across, angle your wire just a little bit against that last wrap, and it'll create a little guide, and it'll make a nice tight series of wraps. So you have to kind of work around that point of that hook. Make sure you don't, if you're using very fine material and you clip the point of that hook, it will break it off. So work it around. Just bring those wraps. And if you have a rotary vise, this is a good time to use that rotary vise if you like. I rarely do. I find that it's more cumbersome sometimes than it is useful. So I'm going to bring that forward. I'm going to tie it off with my thread. It's nice, 3 or 4 nice tight wraps in there. You can cut this off with your scissors, but I prefer to just wiggle it, and with a couple of wiggles it'll come right off, making it a little cleaner, a little tighter spot right up there. At this point you could use your Peacock Herl, or you could use any material for that matter. One material that I like to use is ice dubbing. This is a Peacock ice dubbing. But I think today what we're going to use is a semi-seal. This is a dark brown semi-seal that I use. I'm just going to dub this, and with this semi-seal I usually use a little bit of dubbing wax right on my thumb and my index finger, just to make a little tighter dubbing. And I take my dubbing wax and I put it in a small tin, like that. Once you have your dubbing on your thread, I'm just going to wrap this collared thorax. I tend to like it a little buggy, so you can make it as neat or as buggy as you want to make it. Come up right to the hook eye. Tidy up with a nice head, and finish with a whip finish. If you haven't learned the whip finish yet, there's some good videos on the internet that you can learn that, but you could also use a half hitch here if you like. Usually I teach a kid just to make a half hitch on there. I can clean this up a little bit. If you have some wily threads, make it however you like to look. Like I said, I typically like a little buggier fly there. And there is a Brassie. Very versatile fly, very productive fly. I made these as a kid. It was one of the very first flies I tied. I used to have to go out and scavenger around construction sites looking for wire to use, and I would use these in farm ponds throughout Kentucky, catching smallmouth or bluegill crappie with the Brassie.